Hello everyone and welcome back to another live from the workshop and another episode of my The Fourth Doctors series. Now, this is actually the second time that I'm making this custom because I finished making this and then I realised I'd literally finished painting the whole thing. I'd done the coat, I'd done the body, the arms, the hat, some waistcoat bits which I'm adding on, which I'll go into detail in a minute, and the scarf, and I did them all and I realised it was far too dark. So I have literally just spent the last 15 minutes or so taking all of the paint off this figure so I can now redo it again. Now, what I'm using here is I'm not using the 13 Doctors variant because it is too dark, and that was the reason I chose this one, and this one is the regenerated 5th Doctor version, and obviously it has dirt on the back of it. Obviously this looks a bit more dirty because there is still some small traces of their previous coats of paint on there, but essentially what I tried to do was to use acetone-free nail polish remover to try and remove the dirt marks on the back, and here specifically is where I tried to do it, and it started to take off the actual paint of the coat, so I realised that wasn't the best way to do it, so I had to then repaint it, and then the problem was it was too dark. So what I'm now going to try and do is I'm going to try, because essentially where I've now taken the paint off, obviously there are some slightly darker patches. Now, I'm actually going to leave them because I think it's going to add a bit of depth to it when it's repainted, but what I'm now going to try and do on the inside is to try and match the paint colour as best I can so I can then repaint it. Now the other thing that I'm going to do, which I've tested already, it looks very good, is I've got this old waistcoat piece from, I think it's a Keeper of Traken or Castrovalva figure from the 4th or 5th Doctors, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in place over the front there, and I've actually already done this, as I said, once already, and it does work, it looks very good, and obviously I'm going to put that in front there and then have the coat over the top of it. Yeah, it looks very good, but once again, for me, now is a case of matching up the paint and repainting the coat to start with. So, once again, I will get onto that now. And so here is my finished Season 18 4th Doctor hatted variant. I'm still playing around with the name for this. So yeah, I'm very pleased with how this came out, and that's because originally I was okay with how it came out, because this is actually the third repaint I had to do on this. I originally finished it as you saw it in what you have just seen in the video, and by the time I finished it, it was quite late at night, and then I looked back at it the next day, and it was, again, really dark in colour. It really didn't look right. It was the colour, I have to say, the colour of the burgundy of coat was more like a shade of burgundy that was like the purple, and so the scarf just really stood out. It didn't look right at all. So I ended up just using actually pink paint. I have to say, this is pink paint that I have used, mixed with a little bit of red to make it more of a shade similar to the scarf, and it has definitely worked out better. So yeah, it took a little bit longer. I've put his head on slightly skew-if, but never mind. So yeah, it took a little bit longer to do, but I'm very pleased with the final result now. You can still see some places on the scarf where the paint is still there, particularly around the tassels. You can see it here. But I quite like that because it gives it a nice little bit of depth and shadowing to the scarf, and I think that actually works quite well. So it's worth saying that you could get the same effect if you used the kind of sort of very light wash paint just over the top, and again, it would just add a little bit of depth to it. It's something that you could try and do yourselves. I think it's worked quite well, and in fact, actually, I've just noticed there's a huge mark of paint here, which I still need to get off, but just whilst I'm doing it, that shows you the contrast difference. I mean, that was the original burgundy coat that I had on. I mean, it looks brown, but that is very, very dark burgundy. As I said, it's almost black compared to what it should have been like, and you can see it there. Now, obviously, the other thing as well is the waistcoat. Very pleased with how that's come out. What I would have preferred to have done, if I'm honest, would have been to, and I might still do this at a later date if I ever come across another spare one, is the waistcoat piece on the Keeper of Traken or Castrovalva figures is all one piece, and it can be taken off, and it makes me wonder if you could take it off the old figure and put it onto this one. You have to cut some holes underneath, or cut the pegs out of the coat for those to go through, but you could, in theory, put that over the top, and I may go back and do it because I considered lifting out the collar and putting it over the top, but having previously tried to do that on another figure, it's very difficult to do. So I decided not to do it this time, but it is something that I think I might try and do in future if I get a spare Castrovalva or Traken figure, is to use the actual waistcoat piece on it. But again, I have to say, if that works as an idea and you just use the normal waistcoat piece underneath it, this is again another variant that I think would be a great idea for a release. I mean, okay, we've had a new version of the Season 18, which is a much darker burgundy, which came in the 13 Doctors box set. But if they use the original colouring on the original Season 18 release, which came with K9, which obviously are quite rare now, but if you use that original release, so you had the original sort of burgundy colouring, and then they just repainted one of the normal hatted heads, and then if they wanted to, if it worked, you could put under the waistcoat. But even if you didn't, forget the waistcoat for now. Even if you just had a repainted version of the head on a normal Season 18 body, I think it would sell really well, because it's something that I know a lot of people have wanted. And I actually have to say, I looked into it, and it turns out that between the two differences, between the original Season 18 figure release and the newer 13 Doctors version, the 13 Doctors version is slightly more intricate. It has more patterning on the scarf, things like that, but it is a very much more dark burgundy. And from people I've asked and what I've looked into, given the choice between the original Season 18 and the 13 Doctors, the original version, which is the much lighter burgundy, similar as to be seen here, is what people seem to prefer. So again, I put it out there to Character Options and UT, saying, it's great that you've re-released the Season 18 figure. It's great because I know lots of people wanted it released, but I have to question, did it really need did it really need recoloring and redoing? Because ultimately, with the 13 Doctors box set, they recolored most of them in some ways, even very small amounts. But I mean, I look at the season 18 13 Doctors version, and I look at the original version. I think, why didn't you just do a straight re-release? I mean, I think people would have been happier with that. Even if you'd, re-released it, adding some more detailing onto the scarf, even you hadn't changed the overall colour of it. I think it would have responded better to people. But that is my season 18 hatted variant of the Fourth Doctor. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Fourth Doctors. The next one will be the horror of Fang Rock Doctor with bowler hat, and also I'm hoping to add a rope accessory. But yes, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, favourite, subscribe, share, it really helps me out a lot, and be sure to check out the description below for a link to my Patreon. There is an exclusive webcomic and rewards for people who support it, and the funding generated by my Patreon helps me fund future videos. I salute you all, and I will see you with another video very soon.